Green Bay coming off a disappointing loss to Carolina last week, while Philly had a week to rest up and sit at 6-2 on the year. With a win, they would be tied to top the NFC with LA and Seattle. For the Packers, they're 5-1. The lack of consistency has been frustrating for Coach Matt LaFleur.
There's been moments of really good stuff, and then there's been moments of really bad stuff. So I think it's a really good football team in all three phases. It's a great challenge for us. Hopefully we can go out there and play our best ball.
Again, it'll be the Packers and Eagles tonight in Green Bay. The weather play a factor as temps are expected to be in the upper 20s at game time, dip into the lower 20s throughout the night. Could feel even colder with the wind chill. Jordan Love actually has played in 3 games with the temperature dips below freezing, throwing 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kick tonight is at 7:15. Turn to the Badgers. They're getting back to work after ending a 10-game losing streak to Big Ten opponents and beating a ranked team for the first time since 2021 on Saturday night when they took out Washington. But things do not get easier for the Badgers. They will take on undefeated and number 2 Indiana on Saturday in Bloomington. Hoosiers favored by 30.5 points.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, Milwaukee's lost Torian Prince for the foreseeable future. Got a herniated disc in his neck, is out indefinitely. Bucks are in Dallas tonight to face the Mavericks. Tip is at 7:30. And the Badgers can be back on the floor tomorrow night as they take on Ball State at the Kohl Center. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
Williams has some room in front. He's going to try to take it. But Mason Bosa shuts the door. Wisconsin stands tall.
You know, yes, there is a, not say a relief, there is, you know, a spark, an energy, a hope, a vision that this week gave us.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's the final call from Saturday afternoon and a post-game comment for good measure from Luke Fickell. The Badgers win their first game against a ranked opponent in 1,000 and some days. What is it? Almost 4+ years to the day. A couple of weeks ago, I was keeping track of this stuff. Like, it's been this many straight to Power 4 and this many. And I'm not going to lie. Over the last month, I just gave up. I stopped counting how long it's been since the Badgers had beaten a ranked opponent or a Power 4 opponent or a conference opponent. All right. It's too difficult to keep all these streaks in my mind. And I suppose I could keep a note card and we could write it down, and it'd actually probably be useful for me and Ebo and Zach to have all this. You know, like if you go to Bill's home studio, he's got a big piece of paper on the wall with the phone number and the email and all that stuff. Like you could probably just put a piece of paper here on the computer in the studio with all these numbers, but they were all reset on Saturday. That's where I want to begin with Badgers beating the Huskies. That call is hilarious to me, the final call of that game, because it was on Big Ten Network, right? I think like very few people were at the game. Very few people nationally were watching the game. And yet for the people in the stadium, the biggest moment in forever, the people watching the biggest moment forever, you heard it in the announcer's voice. A horrible football game by most measures, by the way. Like, I don't even know that the quarterbacks were going through their progressions. It was 3-step drop and you're taking off, buddy. You're running. It was a horrible brand of football. But I think sometimes the appeal of college football is that even though the game sucks and people around the country aren't paying attention, for those two fan bases and for those people in the building, it's just the most important thing in the world, and you can feel it. So I had fun for the first time watching college football on Saturday. That's where I want to begin. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. I hope you had a good weekend. Today is November 10th, the 50th anniversary of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. We will do a little bit of a commemoration with our friend Ric Mixter, who joins us for the 4th consecutive year. How lucky are we? There's nobody better at this stuff. He's written a handful of books, not just on the Edmund Fitzgerald, but about countless wrecks and storms and everything to do with maritime history around the Great Lakes. Documentarian, he's a diver. He's dove so many of these wrecks, including the Fitzgerald. And if you're somewhat new to the show and you maybe have missed his previous appearances, I tweeted a long thread earlier today. And if you go to my Twitter at Wisco Grant of previous videos that he's done with the show, previous podcasts, and over the last couple of years, we've mixed in other guests too. Bruce Lynn from the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum, who I saw was in the Fox 9 documentary that I watched over the weekend. It was cool to see Bruce. Last year, we had Jay Gabler from the newspaper. I believe it's the Duluth News Tribune. He wrote a really good story last year about the first radio DJ to ever play the song and the response that he got. So that was cool. If you want to go and pick back through the archives, I would recommend it if that's your thing. And if you just want to talk Packers and Badgers tonight, we'll do plenty of that as well. But we will do 20 minutes at the bottom of this hour at 4:30 with Ric Mixter. I recorded with him last week. We're going to do it in the first hour because I think some of the affiliates, most notably WKTY and La Crosse, I believe going to take the start of the Packers pregame at 5. So I wanted to make sure that before some other programming takes us off the air on some affiliates, we get Rick in. So that's coming up at 4:30. Your calls on the Badgers and the Packers Eagles, will preview that, especially in hour number 2. Mike Clemens will be here, 608-321-1670. And you can text that number, comment on the live stream. That's up and running as well. I'll give you just a couple of takes on the Badger game. I think the story of the game, on top of it being a win, well, maybe we should start with that. Let's start big picture, just on what a win means for the program. It would be very easy. It is very easy to look at the Badgers celebrating a 13-10 win over Washington in a relatively empty Camp Randall in a game that very few people were watching. It would be very easy to point at that and to see the kids storming the field and to see the celebration and think that's sad or that's lame or that's dumb. Look at how far this program has fallen, where we're storming the field for beating 23 Washington. And if you were to have that take, I guess you wouldn't necessarily be wrong. You'd be kind of an a-hole, though. I mean, we know how far the program has fallen. The athletic director for UW has had to give 3 separate statements, one written, one a little bit informal with reporters. He did formal sit-downs with a couple of different outlets last week to express and to explain why Luke Fickell would be back. So if you watched on Saturday and your takeaway was, man, how far this program has fallen, I would tell you, well, yeah, where you been? We've been talking about that for weeks and months. Alumni have been, talking about that for years, really since Luke Fickell was hired, because nobody in and around the program, to use Chris McIntosh's phrase that we beat to death last week, everyone wanted Jim Leonard. Nobody wanted Luke Fickell. Tom Oates and all the alumni. It's funny that I specifically called out Tom Oates. To be fair to Tom, maybe he was right, but I just remember Tom Oates being against us from the beginning. So if your takeaway Saturday was, man, how far have we fallen? Yeah, but we knew that. On Saturday, in that moment, I can't think of a program, a group of kids, a group of coaches, a group of fans in that building that stayed through the weather. I can't think of a group of people that have ever needed a win worse than that group, than those players and those coaches and those fans. So if you think it's lame or you think it's dumb that they stormed to the field, I guess you can think that. I would call you a little bit of a boob if you're going to make that your whole take. I think you're missing the big point of what a win like that means. Like, just a little bit of a pressure release for everyone to go, okay. I think it's really important when teams are rebuilding or when teams are struggling. And we've talked about this on the show. I remember talking about this in Jordan Love's first year starting, when they had lost a couple games in a row. Like, there's certain moments where you just have to get a win, and it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to be against the best team in the world. But sometimes when you're in it and you're going through it as a program, you just need a win so everyone can take a deep breath and so everyone can have a chance to celebrate together. Even if it's just Washington, although I don't really like saying just Washington. They're 6-3 and they're the 23rd ranked team in the country. It's not Ohio State or Oregon, but I think it would be kind of lame and inaccurate to boot to downplay the meaning of that moment. And now maybe you get into the week and you say, well, what's it going to matter? They're going to get boat raced by Indiana on Saturday. Okay, all right, maybe. But for all of the pissing and moaning and belly aching we've done about this program and their struggles, like, I think it would be kind of lame and, again, inaccurate to not speak of the significance and that moment where guys like Luke Fickell and his staff can just say, okay, there we go. Do you know how hard it is week after week after week for coaches to go in there and be like, we just got to keep our nose to the grindstone when you've lost 5, 6, 7 in a row? Like, it's true. You do have to keep your nose to the grindstone, and you do just need to keep attacking because football is hard, and that's the way you got to approach it. But you know how hard that is? You know how hard it is to keep yelling at guys to stick with it, do ABC, the process. The process is important, yes, But when results are never there, it gets a little tough. It gets a little hard. So for that group of guys, those coaches and those players to have a chance just to celebrate something together, like I don't think the importance of that can be overstated. Now, specifically talking about the football of it all, I think one of the biggest problems with Wisconsin the last couple of years is we don't know what they're good at. Like, what are you hanging your hat on? For years, it was O-line and running game. And, even in years where they didn't have Jonathan Taylor or Melvin Gordon or Monte Ball, even in a year where maybe they didn't have the best O-line and the best running back, you know what they were good at in like the second half of the 2010s? Whether it was Dave Aranda or Justin Wilcox or then Jim Leonard, like having a badass defense with guys who hit really hard and stopped the run. And I'm not saying that the Badgers defense has returned to that form, but having anything, literally anything to hang your hat on just as a starting point. I think you can say that the Badgers probably have that now. And it's their inside linebacking tandem, their freshmen, Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa. And Heiberger is another freshman who got run, not as much run. He logged, a couple plays, a couple tackles too. I think he started, actually. I was listening to Jesse and Zach on the camp, and I think they made mention of that. Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa combining for 30 tackles. And Mason Posa slamming the door at the end. They got a long way to go. But just having one thing where it's like, okay, well, we're good at that one thing. Let's go from there. Let's build from there. Because I think for the last couple of years, we talked about this with Jim Polzin last week, the defensive scheme has kind of been changed every year. The offensive scheme has been adjusted. Even from Phil Longo's first year to the second year, they were making adjustments. And then they go with another offensive coordinator, and you're shifting quarterbacks constantly out of necessity because they're hurt. And now this year, the O-line shuffling because they're hurt. And now they're on their second, third, fourth running back because they're hurt. And you're dealing with guys like Nazir Forkurian who can't play because of eligibility. It's just all this stuff. You're never settling your feet. You're never getting solid footing. And even if this Badgers season ends with them only winning 3 games, and who knows, maybe they steal one more. Maybe they beat Minnesota or something like that. Even if this season ends, and the only thing, Badgers fans, that you can wrap your arms around is a stud duo or trio of inside linebackers, that's better than where they ended last year, and it's better than where they ended the year before. And if that to you isn't enough, and I would claim that it's not, because after 3 years of Luke Fickell, I would like a little bit more than that. Okay, whatever. This is the reality that we were handed, and Luke Fickell's going to stay here. So within that reality, within the parameters that we've been given, which we cannot change, going back the last couple of years, just having that thing, those two guys, okay, we can build on that. We can do something with that. That's a place to start. I wish I could say anything about the young quarterbacks, but Carson, he's just running around back there. I mean, it was horrible football. It was special teams gaffes, more than one, missed field goal, getting a punt blocked. I mean, neither team was passing the ball at all. I mean, it was Pop Warner football. And the weather was part of it, sure. But I wish the Badgers, would have been able to run the ball just a little bit better. It was just Pop Warner football. Again, in a season from hell. And the Badgers have been complicit because I think they've done a really bad job with a lot of things, as we've talked about. But in a season from hell where you're on your 4th quarterback, and look at the schedule. The schedule looks like something that was cooked up by a bunch of schedule makers who have it out for you, Wisconsin. And amidst all of that, to just get a win in any way possible, very, very important. And to downplay that by being, well, yeah, but look at how far the standard has fallen. Yes, and we've covered that at length. But there's nothing we can do to change that. This Badgers program currently is where this Badgers program currently is. And that's the reality we were dealt. So staying and living in that reality and looking at that win, it's pretty darn important for that group of guys and for that coaching staff. And you might have found just a couple young studs. I think I saw Cohn tweeting, comparing Catalano and Mason Posa to Taylor and Borland. Like that's a good start. You can build on that. And you're going to have to build a lot and invest a lot, but it's something greater than they had at the end of each of the last 2 seasons if this continues. And whatever, I'm not going to complain. I'll take it. I'll take whatever we can get. I'll take your Badgers thoughts on the other side of this break. I'll also give you a couple of thoughts on the NFL slate yesterday, especially on a couple of the Packers' rivals, all of who played yesterday, the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings. Ric Mixter going to join us to commemorate the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald at 4:30. And your phone calls next at 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Incredible is right now in 2022, we're still trying to figure out why these lakes do this during especially the fall system. We know that they heat up the cold lakes. Lake Superior is about 35 degrees at the bottom. During the summertime, we at least get the surface layer that heats up. So during the fall, they try to evaporate as that heat tries to dissipate as the snow comes in. So imagine all that moisture coming up, and then you get these Gulf storms with this thick, heavy weather that comes up that's warm, colliding with the Arctic fronts out of Canada. And it just creates these weather bombs that just devastate the Great Lakes. So we see these in the 1800s. And really my research started in 1905, because that's when I could reasonably find photographs and the pieces that I need to tell the story visually for television, and documentaries. So 1905, the big ones, 1913, 1940, and then we go into the super freighters, the Fitzgerald, the Morrell, and the Carl Bradley.
Lake Huron Road, Superior Sea.
Wisco Sports Show. That's Ric Mixter, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I'll mix in some little sound bites, some comments from him over the course of the show. He'll be here in about 10 minutes. We'll do 20 minutes talking about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. It's the 50th commemorative. I don't like saying anniversary. That word feels wrong. It's the 30th anniversary. I guess that's probably the right word. So we'll do that. We'll preview Packers Eagles with Mike Clemens in hour number 2. I want to take your Badgers thoughts, or if you have Packers thoughts, I'll take your calls for a segment here. We got some time before we got to get to Rick. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Good morning, Vietnam.
Who's this?
Your one and only Z and the D.
What's up, Z? How's it going?
With a guest star.
Okay.
Hey, Grant. Hey, Grant.
Howdy.
We're in the great city of Appleton.
Is that G-Dub?
The lovely city of Appleton in the garage.
Oh, you guys are hanging out for the guy. Are you watching the game there tonight?
I am.
Greg is. I'm going to the game. We just had to make a pit stop here.
Oh, hell yeah. How's the weather? It actually should be like a chilly, like actual, like awesome night at Lambeau for a Monday Night Football game.
Well, I'm going to put on about 3 or 4 layers of clothing because I am used to the cold, but not used to that much of the cold. And I'm just going to get used to it. And so, yeah.
Well, excellent.
But that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. Well, I appreciate you guys checking in. G-Dub, who's going to win tonight?
No. That's not about it.
Well, then don't say that's about it. What do you got?
No, I mean, that was about it, about the clothing.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Hey, Grant.
Yes, G-Dub.
Your thoughts. I talked about it this morning. So, talent evaluation at the Badgers at Wisconsin. How in the world do they not know Posa and what's his Allegretti?
Catalano.
How do they not know? Yeah. Sorry. How do they not know that guy? Those two are that good in practice. They're doing that against ranked teams. How do they not know? Like, hey, these guys can play.
Well, they're both so young.
That?
They've probably improved a lot over the course of the season, would be my guess. If you mean like, why haven't they been playing sooner? Why didn't they play earlier? That would be my guess.
Yeah,
they're kids.
Exactly. Like they didn't notice. Hey, these boys can play in practice, and then all of a sudden they force them in there, and now they're balling out.
Well, a month ago,
how did that happen?
2 months ago, they might not have been the same player.
I don't buy that.
It's a fine question. So. That would just be my best guess. I'm not telling you that you're wrong to ask a question.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
It's like them and Jonathan Taylor. They didn't know what they had in Jonathan Taylor. Like, oh, they didn't see that. Remember when Jonathan Taylor first came out?
Yeah, but I ask Badger people about Jonathan Taylor, and all of them agree with that. Like, I don't know. Like, that's corroborated by smart Badger people that Jonathan Taylor really wasn't all that right away.
Yeah, I'm just a dummy.
Well, I'm definitely a dummy. But I mean, they're playing now. You get a little taste, and then next year they're your studs.
Yep, they sure are. They're balling.
We'll enjoy the festivities tonight, gentlemen.
We will, Grant. And I'll be keeping receipts, so I might be calling in tomorrow during another Grant Bill show, Bill Michaels show. Who knows?
Well, excellent. Smooches, Z. Nice to hear from you both. I love how both of you called, and I'm just expected to, I got a guest with me here. And GW just goes, hey. It's like, oh, sure. Yeah, I can wreck. If he said a couple more words, I guess. Enjoy the scene up there in Appleton. I want to get to Gregapalooza this year. I don't know. Maybe I'll catch a ride with Ebo. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, good afternoon, Grant. It's Corey out of Marshall.
Good afternoon, Corey out of Marshall. What's up?
Shout out to G-Dub and V, the dynamic duo up there in Appleton. Always nice hearing from those fellas. And happy 250th to G-Dub and his all Devil Dogs.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Birthday. 24 Hunden, as the Germans found out in World War I. So, gale warnings today on Lake Superior, apropos for the day. Question for you, maybe ask that Ric Mixter. The 1940 storm, is that the Veterans Day storm that took down a bunch of duck hunters on Mississippi River?
Yeah, the Armistice Day storm. I think so, yeah.
Yep. Okay, good to know. Well, that was another rip-roaring event, too. A lot of guys died on that one because they went out dressed for an easy day duck hunting and come out to a blizzard and sub-zero temps, and they're freezing in their boats on the Mississippi. So next on to the Badgers. Agreed. Nice grind out win. And you could kind of see that deep thing when they played Oregon. And they gave up 3 touchdowns, yes, but they just played them hard and kind of tough. I don't know how to best explain it, but it looked like a process there of some type taking shape. So, as he said, build around the linebackers, Posa, Catalano from my high school back in Germantown. Good to see. Tackling machine. I would say this, their medical staff needs to, I'm not sure if they went to the Nick Riviera School of Medicine, because Danny O'Neill, they send him out, say he's dinged up. What's he proceed to do? Blows out his knee. He's dragging that thing along with him behind him now the rest of the year.
Well, here's my concern is the Packers are sending all of their medical mysteries to Madison. So if the Badgers don't know what they're doing, then that also impacts the.
And second order business, I've said this to Ebo as well. He over conditions these guys in the summer, doesn't give them enough time to recover, and that's why you have an injury list that's as long as a seat. That's as long as your arm. Because the guy, he thinks, I'm dead serious about this too. People have told him that he overtrains these guys, They basically are doing 2 days during summertime. They give them a week off. They come right back to football. And I get that we all want to be the tough guy, blah, blah, blah. At the same time, your body needs rest and recovery. That's why you have all these soft tissue injuries. And his response is, if they get injured, then I know that they're being trained too hard. So, throw in another squat fest with some more guys riding on their bikes, and I'll put dollars to donuts. Next year, they'll end up with a bad injury again. One of these guys.
You can't, Corey.
They don't replace them. I'll let you get going before the interview.
No, you're good, Corey. I appreciate it. You can't take away Squat Fest. If we lose Squat Fest, then we have nothing. The next thing to go will be the jump around, which I've argued with Zach. But the jump around looked pretty lit on Saturday. It turns out that it worked out okay. Yeah, but back to your original point, Corey. They had to win that game. As Washington gets the ball with a chance to win, I'm like, oh my God, if they blow this, I mean, maybe McIntosh does have to can the whole staff. I know he just gave him a very public showing of support again, but oh my God, like I don't know how that would have gone had Washington marched down and stole that game back at the end. All right, one more call here. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Brant, this is Ron.
Hey, Ron, what's going on today?
It feels great to win again.
Doesn't it?
To win a game.
It was fun.
It was fun. I was with Ebo at the Blue Moon Saturday. But that was a blast.
Was Dave from Monona there too? I thought I saw a picture.
I don't remember. And I was.
That's okay.
But I didn't predict the score this time. I usually do, but I told Ebo Saturday before the game I give them a 40% chance to win this game. They're going to need some luck. They're going to need some breaks. I told Ebo, I think the defense will play well, but they got some breaks. They got some turnovers and give a lot of game balls to the defense. So
I think they were owed some of that luck. How many fumbles have bounced the wrong way for them, or interceptions gone right through the hands, those types of things. And they made it harder on themselves. They got their own punt blocked at their own 1 yard line. They basically spotted Washington a touchdown.
Yeah, you can't let that happen. They got to stop. You can't let that happen.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree with you, Ron. And I got to run. We'll talk again soon. We'll talk more Badgers if they win some more games, especially. But we got to get to Ric Mixter, who will join us next to commemorate the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. That'll be fun. And Packers in hour number 2. Mike Clemens will be here at 5:30, and we'll get ready for Packers Eagles. A lot more of the show still to come.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the words turn the minutes to hours?
Ric Mixter is back. I think this is year number 3 or 4. It's crazy how quickly the year passes, but it's a pleasure to have you back. Author, diver, documentarian. My first experience with you was watching a news clip where you were described as one of the members firmly on the Mount Rushmore of Great Lakes researchers. And I'm like, that's a title that I've never heard. So Rick, I hope you've been well. I see you're very busy covering your subject matter and you've been traveling around and I want to hear about that. I saw you were in Madison this year, which is cool. You're right.
It was so much fun. Yeah, we literally have been able to track the big dive shows, including that's a Ghost Ships festival that they do there. And I got to talk about the Fitzgerald. And then I'll be in Superior, Wisconsin, where the last dock was made. I've been in E-Course where the Fitz was built. So it's nice to kind of follow that course. I've never seen this much interest, and it certainly is because of the 50th anniversary.
Well, and that was actually where I was going to start, because I've noticed over the last year, I think part of it is because our algorithms have gotten really good. So if I'm into this stuff, I'm going to see more of it. And it's the 50th anniversary, but it seems like that with every year that passes, people get more interested in this, or people are talking about it more, or I see more bits of content. Like it seems like this gets bigger every year.
I don't know if it's going to be that way next year. I mean, this is going to be
Good
the
point.
apex, I think, because it's a 50th anniversary. We've got all kinds of interest at all the different locations that ring the bell, that shine the beacons, the lighthouses for the Fitzgerald. I think that this will be the peak, and we'll kind of come down from it. Also, the interest in at least 5 new books that have come out, and that's amazing to see that much interest, and especially from high quality authors. That's a wonderful thing for our Great Lakes shipwrecks.
And you dove the wreck in 94, and you've told that story on the show. So if you're listening to this and you haven't heard that, I'll after our segment's done, I'll make sure you're able to find that. That was in 94. How many people or how many trips have gone down there? Because it's not as many as I bet people would guess, right?
Yeah, and I know that when the Canadian Navy got involved to bring up the bell, the trips increased. I think Emery Kristoff had gone down like 6 or 8 times. So by no means have I been down there longer than most people. The longest dive we did was 200 minutes with Fred Shannon, and then he did a second dive to put the plaque down at the very end where we marked the crew's names. This is before the bell came up and the memorial bell with all the names came on it. So we were the first to mark that, and he made that second dive. So it's got to be less than 20 people and maybe 3 women, maybe 2 women that have been down there. So it's an elite crew, and I'm honored to be one that got to see it. We did not want to be the one that, brought back news of a missing sailor. It was never our intention, but that's kind of put us into the history of the wreck more so than maybe the other divers.
Well, and you were telling me earlier this week about some of the legalities of approaching a wreck like that, and whether it's Canadian water, United States water. I know it's very close to wherever that line of demarcation is, and I don't know how they settle that. Maybe you can explain that, but talk about that part of the dive, because I would imagine a big part of going down to see wrecks is checking legal boxes, checking with local municipalities, and making sure everything's squared away there.
Well, you think about the border that goes between the United States and Canada. It really kind of came up when Ben Franklin was trying to pick out if Isle Royale should be part of Michigan or Minnesota or Canada.
I didn't know that was Ben Franklin. I didn't know that part of that background.
Oh, yeah. He knew the copper resources were on that island, and a lot of people were excited about that. So we fought hard to keep that island, and it's a surprise that it's Michigan because it's so far out. But that's an arbitrary line for the longest time until finally GPS came out, and now you can really figure out, within a few feet if you're there or not. And most of the line had been that the Coast Guard believed it was 750 feet into Canadian water, but our expedition leader said, no, I think it's right on the line. And then I did my book, and I interviewed Tim Askew Jr., who's a sub pilot that was on an opposing team on board the Clelia. And he just volunteered it right away. He goes, that wreck's in American waters. And it makes more sense now when you think about the Michigan legislation that came out. Even though they were all saying, well, it's in Canadian water, why did Michigan pass a law to ban footage from the Edmund Fitzgerald then? I think it was to cover the fact that that's true.
Interesting. Do you think it would be beneficial for more trips to go down there? You said it's probably less than 2 dozen. Like, if you could go back down there and spend more time, do you think there's more to uncover and a lot more to be learned?
Yeah, I mean, I was very honest when we first started talking that I barely knew. I knew the song. I knew part of the Coast Guard report. I went down there just to get pictures of the bow and really the stern. Now add in 30 years of interviews, research, and all of the files that have come out from all of that at 6 different libraries. And you're finding that there's all kinds of new questions. I've looked at almost all of the footage now, from the Coast Guard to the 89 expedition, going into the Clelia, and especially, the 16 hours that we filmed with the Delta. And there's a whole bunch of things that are coming up, like, why isn't there any cargo in the forward section? Why didn't I see anything in the first and second hold? And it's starting to change the dynamic. I know now for a fact it never ran aground. I can prove that by so many of the testimonials that we've done, that we've recorded, from the investigators into, even architects that have said that the ship would have sank right at Caribou if it went down, and the guys on the Bayfield that surveyed the area and said the water was actually deeper. There is no mysterious 6-fathom shoal. It did not nosedive. So all of these things are building up this, should we go back? And as the years go past, 25 years ago, I might have said no. Now I'm kind of, well, it's been 50 years. And yeah, I'd kind of like to be there. And that doesn't go well with some of the family members. They're not pleased to hear that, and they're making their voices known. And I understand that. But I don't think that they deserve a voice when all these other shipwrecks, there's 12,000 other shipwrecks where people have lost their lives, 25,000 other people that Gordon Lightfoot never wrote a song about They don't get a voice on whether or not we dive it. And I don't think that we've abused it. And I don't think we've abused it on the Fitzgerald to the point of where they can say you can't go down there, quite frankly.
Interesting. And you think it's just solely because of the song?
Oh, it's definitely the song. Nobody knew about the Carl Bradley, 1958, 2 survivors. They had 33 people that drowned, more than on the Edmund Fitzgerald, and they were all forgotten, even though it devastated the community of Rogers City, Michigan. Even a survivor told me that darn song. He goes, all they remember is the Fitzgerald. They don't remember us. Dennis Hale, that's only survivor from the Daniel J. Morrell, went down in 1966, split in half. The stern kept going for 5 more miles, and not a soul survived on that extra time they got. The lifeboat went right down with the ship, and Hale was the same way. That song never mentions us, it doesn't talk about us. And I think that's how I'm feeling now as we look at the 29 times the bell will ring everywhere around the Great Lakes. And I have to say, you know what, maybe it's time we start ringing for the 25,000 other people as well.
Because there are so many shipwrecks, and you've researched and dove a lot of them. One technical question, you were talking a little bit about the wreck and the way the Fitz went down. In everything that I watch, your content or every story that I've ever watched about the Fitzgerald and its sinking, it's always talked about how fast it went down. Is that unique? I mean, you just talked about a ship that split and then half of it went another 5 miles. So tell me about that particular part of this wreck and what makes it unique or what it tells us about the wreck.
You bet. And the fact that the Morrell was empty when that happened, the Carl Bradley was empty, filled with water, ballast to make sure the propeller could still do its job. But much different when you're loaded with 26,000 tons of iron ore pellets. You're heavier. The ship had been taking damage all year, and the captain pushed, every storm. He hit at least 4, maybe 5 gales in 1975 alone. And we know through the Cook, we know through Coast Guard records that flexing of the ship was different. It was more bigger, more pronounced on the Fitzgerald, and that would cause problems with the keel. And now water's coming in. We knew it leaked through the hatches. It's not a popular theory, but I proved that my dive and the Coast Guard as well, that the hatches weren't all dogged down. Every picture I have of the Fitzgerald shows the hatches weren't dogged down. And then the vents are filling up. The hatch coamings had leaks on them. And that poor ship just got lower and lower in the water until that one big wave that damaged the Anderson sped ahead, hit the Fitzgerald right after they had just said, we're holding our own.
Ric Mixter is here for his yearly visit, and we appreciate his time a ton. It's funny you mentioned the Anderson, because one of my favorite parts about the Fitzgerald is, reading your book or following anything that you do, and you covered this really well. All of the ships and the captains and the men of the other boats that were in the area who went on these search and rescue missions that, they on some level had to understand how insane those missions are. Some of these boats weren't equipped for that. The Wood Rush, which is featured in your new book, the Anderson, the William Clay Ford, talk about some of those captains in that part of the story. Because I think it's one of the most interesting parts of the story, and it's not talked about as much.
It's interesting because, here there were several ships that were at anchor. This is the smart thing to do in that storm. And again, let's not blow it out of perspective. This was not even a top 12 storm in the last century. I've heard it described with 100-mile-an-hour winds. I'm like, where are you getting that from? The highest winds I saw sustain were 60 from Standard Rock. And of course, some of the ships said it was a little higher in gusts, but that's not really what you worry about. You need a prolonged wind to get that fetch to build the big waves that come up. And it certainly built a big enough wave, but it didn't sink the Anderson. So the big question is, what was wrong with the Fitzgerald when it went down? But when the Coast Guard went to respond, the Naugatuck tried to go out of the Sioux, a little tugboat, had engine problems. It turned back. The Coast Guard sent their airplane and their helicopters out, and then they called the Wood Rush with Captain Jimmy Hobaugh, an amazing skipper. I talked to several of the crew and Jimmy, who actually, I did the last lecture with him before he passed in Bay City. Just an amazing man, a real hero on the Great Lakes to go out and try to find it. And Cooper's interview is amazing because he talks about why the saltwater ships wouldn't turn around. They were much closer. They were an hour closer than he was. The Roush wouldn't bring up its anchor. He said, no, it's too rough. I'm not going to endanger my crew. And that was his responsibility. The Clay Ford didn't go out right away either until the Anderson turned around and they met each other at 2:00 in the morning at the wreck site. And that's where Cooper said, what an exercise in futility. That was his exact quote. What was I going to do? Stop my boat? He said, no, it wasn't possible. So I think in many ways he was glad he didn't find a lifeboat, but he was sad that he didn't find live people either. It would have been amazing to bring people out, but it was so quick. But we don't know. It was a half hour blinded in the snow. The radars blotted out by the snow, the binoculars, the nighttime taking a lot of those lights too that you couldn't see. We don't know how fast it was, but it seems by every account that it was too fast to try to get a mayday out. And that could have been how the ship broke up on the surface. It could have been, just how sudden it was. We don't know. And that's the part that I think we could figure out some of it. And that's what's always kept my interest. But if it was quick, boy, that's amazing, because I've heard too many stories of guys slowly dying on life rafts, when the Coast Guard didn't know to search for the guys in the morale, and it just rips your heart out.
Well, and Captain Hobaugh, was that the Wood Rush, which was
a
relatively small boat. And the only reason I remember this, because I think it was maybe your special, the Edmund Fitzgerald investigations, PBS one, and it's on YouTube. It takes me back to elementary school. It's awesome. And there's some interviews in there with him. And that's a captain who obviously knows his equipment and the technical nature of sailing on the lakes. But you could also tell with him that there's a real belief that there's a spirit to the water. There's a person, he believed in that thing too. And that side of a Great Lakes captain is really interesting to me. And if you've done lectures with him, I'm sure you've heard plenty of that as well.
I'm so lucky, because not only have I heard from him, and he was, a captain that went to saltwater and came back. Many of the Coast Guard captains would change duties and go to different boats. Captain Muth, who saved the guys on the Sundew, I brought him back from Florida as they were laying that ship up. It's last year of ice breaking. And it was great to talk to him too. They talk about the ocean being a totally different and more predictable sea, where you could pitch and yaw and you'd pretty much expect what was coming. But the Great Lakes, it bounces off the shoreline. They said, you don't know where it's coming from. It's so confusing out there that it's a totally different animal. So where some saltwater captains come in and call it ponds, or tiny lakes, no, there's a deep respect for these lakes, even Lake Erie, that, is so unpredictable because it's so shallow. Its average depth is 65 feet.
So I know you've dove and explored both Superior and Michigan, and those are the lakes that, flank the northern half of the UP, but then some of Wisconsin as well, and then Lake Michigan all the way down the east coast of Wisconsin and Green Bay and Door County and all of that. I guess I'm interested to just hear you compare your experiences on the lake, if we're talking about the personality of the water and, the ecology, the bathymetry, all that stuff, but the feeling and the vibe and the spirit you get from those two lakes and the ways in which they're different.
And I've always said I'm the luckiest boy from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, because I've had great assignments. I spent time with the University of Michigan on Lake Michigan, going out in Laurentian and checking out, the tiniest of creatures as we watch the impact of the zebra and quagga mussels come in. I used that in my special for PBS and Great Lakes in Depth, my series that I did. And it's a different lake. We went out nice and calm, and that night I was hitting my head on the ceiling from my bunk, how fast those waves kick up. And we did the same thing on Superior, going out aboard the research vessel Boyd, which is the one that we have at the museum. I'm on the board of directors at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society. And it was fog and flat calm as we scanned the area. But coming back, we had 9-foot seas. And it just happened like that. Never predicted, or we wouldn't have stayed out that long. And it was scary coming back in, because at some point you've got to turn yourself broadside to get into the dock. And that's where it gets messy. If you can keep your nose into it or keep a stern sea, you can almost ride it out. But unfortunately, if you're going to a dock or some place of safety, you're going to eventually have to turn into it. And that's where it gets messy.
Okay, so you said you were in Madison this summer, and you were doing some things around Wisconsin. So I want to hear what you were doing, or where maybe we can find some of that stuff. And then your new book, and we might have even talked about this last year as well, talking about dogs on these shipwreck boats and these rescue boats and the roles that they played. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe your most recent work?
Oh yeah, the first place I went to was Ghost Ships in Manitowoc, and I got to go through the museum again with Kevin, the director, and see the new model that Richard Sullivan did. Richard did the original Coast Guard drawings that everybody's seen about the Edmund Fitzgerald, and he admitted that most of the stuff was wrong because he just didn't have enough information. Well, Sullivan had contacted our expedition, and we gave him 16 hours of footage, and he came up with this hyper accurate, right down to the rope that's actually around the steering pole on the bow, and the rope that we saw, the knotted leading line that was down on the back of the ship hanging right over the shoe. next to the propeller. So highly detailed. There is some stuff that was missed, and I pointed it out just because I think I'm too smart, but I at least wanted to say there was some stuff that I think he made up in some areas too that we didn't know. But what we did know was there's no taconite in the front section. If you look, there's no taconite in hatches 1 or 2. There's no taconite at the break at hatch 8 and 9 in the bow section. That is a clear indication. It all spilled out when the ship broke on the surface. Otherwise, it would have spilled as it nosedived in, as so many people believe. But Manitowoc was a great stop. Madison, I came in PBS, the Discovery Group brought me in, and we filmed an incredible series. And I got to meet with underwater archaeologist Tammy, and she's just incredible. We got to have dinner with her, she and her boyfriend, and it was just absolutely amazing. So, and Brendan Baylott, who's another very famous, he found at least 3 shipwrecks last year on Lake Michigan. He joined us too, and it was a lot of fun to come into Wisconsin. I don't get to do that as much as I want, and my dad lives in Wisconsin too, so I've got to get over there soon, and hopefully we can do a tour that would go through Door County and Milwaukee as well. But I will be in Superior coming up here just on November 7th or 8th. I think it's the 8th.
Yeah, you're hitting every corner of the state, which I love because I love every corner of the state as well. And your book, Howling Winds, tell us about that and where we can get it, because I haven't got it yet.
Oh, I'll get you a copy, because Howling Winds really kind of started with a shipwreck we found near the Edmund Fitzgerald, same depth. On the American side, we found the Huronton, and it had been a shipwreck that the first mate had run aboard and saved the dog. I saw the name of the first mate, and I was blown away. I'd interviewed a crew of the guys that knew Richard Simpel. He had said he'd been on 17 shipwrecks, and I think that was number 2 for him, the Novadoc being number 16 for him. Again, I don't know who would sail with a guy who's been on that many shipwrecks, but I wouldn't. The truth is the story was amazing. And then I found out through my interviews with Captain Hobaugh that there was a dog aboard the Woodrush that went after the Fitzgerald. So I thought, boy, would this make a great first kids book. But then I realized that some of the outcomes, like the Philadelphia and the Albany, there was no room for the dogs in the lifeboats. And some of those outcomes just isn't fitting for a children's book. So I wrote a full, book about the dogs, and it's called Howling Winds. And I'm really proud of it.
And I'm going to have to get my hands on that. And then Tattletale Sounds as well. I cannot recommend enough. In fact, I normally keep it in my car in the slot behind my driver's seat, because then when I'm on a fishing trip or if we're camping or whatever, that's just I'll pull that out and read a chapter anytime I just need a book when I wouldn't normally have one with me. So that's kind of my go-to book.
I'll send you, Bottled Goodbyes is my other one that I did, and it's all about messages in bottles. And the one ship we're looking for is kind of off the Michigan-Wisconsin border as you go up north of Door County, approaching St. Martin's Island, Poverty Island. The Plymouth is missing there, and a bottle washed ashore with a note from a policeman who was on board that was trying to protect the ship from being damaged by the people on board. And here they went into the storm of the century in 1913, where 12 ships and all hands died, 260 people lost in one weekend. And the bottle washes ashore, and it says, "Dear wife and kids, we were left here by McKinnon of the tug Martin, and he went away and never said goodbye or anything. I hope I see you in heaven. And P.S. the lumber company owes me $35. So these notes are just so incredibly terrifying and almost humorous in the part where they, what would you write if you were going to write that last minute? You can't really say, here's where I'm at, because no one could come and get you very quickly like we can with a helicopter today. But those notes have haunted me, and I wrote a whole book about those as well.
We'll have to get into that. Rick, I appreciate your time everywhere. Love your work, and anything you do in post will follow along with. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
It's absolutely my thrill. Thanks for keeping maritime history alive.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Probably 11 o'clock in the morning, the third mate was still up in the bridge. These fellows have spent all their time up there. And he spotted the lifeboat. It was only a half a lifeboat. It looked like a giant hand had just torn it right in two.
We searched for 3 days in probably the roughest seas I've ever been in my life, including the North Atlantic and hurricanes in the Gulf, because you got 3 different seas from 3 different directions. And at one point we rolled 51 degrees. It was a real quick snap roll, and my XO went flying across the bridge and was actually standing on the bulkhead, on the port bulkhead. If the door had been open to the port bridge wing, he'd have went right on over the side.
In a musty old hall.
Some fun audio, a couple of captains. I remember cutting that last year. Bernie Cooper, who is the Anderson. Jimmy Hobaugh, I've watched so many interviews with this guy, and it was never my intention, but I've watched a bunch of Rick specials because we keep having him on every year. The shipwreck is 50 years old. I need material. I can't just ask him the same questions every time. So it's like, all right, let's dig up, one of Rick specials or documentaries. And 2 of the captains, these people are just fascinating. So I have now 4 interviews with Rick. So if you heard that, it's like, damn, that guy's interesting. And if you're newer to the show recently, in the last year or 2, I 3 or 4 of those with Rick. Well, 4 of those with Rick now, and then a couple of other interviews from the last few Novembers. And I have a long thread on my Twitter at Wisco Grant. If you message me on Facebook, if you're not on Twitter, I can send you links and stuff. The Facebook page, the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills. The YouTube page has a couple of them as well, but I can send you podcast links and stuff if you are interested. In hour number 2, I want to get ready for Packers Eagles because that's now about 2 hours away. A huge game for the way that the Packers will be perceived. I think it'll be important for the way the Eagles are perceived too. The Eagles are not dissimilar from the Packers in 2025 in that I don't know that they've really reached their ceiling, but more than once or twice. The difference is that team just made and won the Super Bowl. So you get the benefit of the doubt in the regular season if you're a team that's coming off a Super Bowl win. The Packers obviously not that team. So the degree of criticism for the Packers a little bit higher than the Eagles, but a massive night tonight for the way that we perceive both of these teams, especially the Packers. We'll get into that. Mike Clemens will be here starting at 5:20 as well for 2 segments. We'll get Mike for 2 to do a game day preview. We are very lucky with some good guests tonight. So if you want to call and you have anything to say, next segment is the segment to do. We'll be right back after a 2-minute update from Zach Heilprin.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, it's game day for the Packers. They're going to take on the Eagles tonight in a matchup of two of the top teams in the NFC. Philly enters at 6-2, a half game back of Seattle and LA for the best record in the NFC. Green Bay, meanwhile, 5-2-1, sits atop the NFC North, though Detroit and Chicago both 6-3. Packers just 1-4 against the Eagles under Coach Matt LaFleur, including losing both games last year. But Xavier McKinney likes what Green Bay has in its locker room and looking forward to the challenge of facing this Eagles team.
No, our roster is really good. I think our team is really good, but their team is also really good as well. It's a big game for both teams, just knowing that we could potentially see each other again later on down the line. So I think this game kind of sets that up, and we got to be real intentional about what we go out there with and the play style that we have, and just in case we see them again.
Again, to be the Packers and Eagles tonight. Kick is slated for 7:15. Turn to the Badgers. They snapped their 6-game losing streak on Saturday, beating number 23 Washington. Now comes another very stiff test. They head to Bloomington to face unbeaten and number 2 Indiana. Odds makers have the Hoosiers as 30.5-point favorites in the game. Kick on Saturday is at 11 a.m.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Bucs going to be without Taurean Prince for a while. Team announced he suffered a herniated disc in his neck and is out indefinitely. Milwaukee is in Dallas tonight to face the Mavericks. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil for it.
You have to start with Mason Posa and Cooper Catalano. Before we started recording, I was talking about how in order to do something special for a program, you need superstars. You really do. You can have a bunch of really good college players that may not be NFL caliber, and you can be a good team. But if you want to rise out of the doldrums, you need what you had in Cooper and Mason. And my God, it is so refreshing and entertaining to watch these two guys play. The fact that Cooper Catalano finished with 19 tackles as a true freshman is mind-boggling. And Wisconsin puts out post-game, they provide statistics and historical background. It's the most tackles that anyone at Wisconsin has had since Mike Taylor in 2011 against Ohio State when Taylor had 22.
Yes, there is a, not say a relief, there is a spark, an energy, a hope, a vision that this week gave us.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
More sound getting at the Badgers win on Saturday. That's Jesse Temple on the camp with Zach Heilprin, Cooper Catalano, and Mason posted the story. We talked about that back at 4 o'clock. I will take your calls on that if you're interested, if you want to talk about Wisconsin's first win over a ranked opponent since 2021. It's been thousands of days. That is on the table. And of course, we can get ready for Packers Eagles tonight. Monday Night Football, it should be a cold, quintessential made-for-TV matchup and made-for-TV night at Lambeau Field. So looking forward to getting home and popping some NyQuil and enjoying. I'm a little under the weather. I got a cold this weekend. Not too bad, but I think I'm going to pop a couple NyQuil and have myself a little bit of a night watching Packers Eagles. I pray to God that the Packers win because they're my team and I want to see them win. I'm an owner, after all. I want the Packers to win tonight because I don't. May I, for 1 second, put the me in media? I don't want to deal with angry anti-Matt LaFleur, anti-Jordan Love. I want a week where everyone calms down a little bit, selfishly. I feel like we've been complaining about a lot of the same things for the last month. A big win over the Eagles would enjoy I would enjoy some narrative changes for my own sanity, as well as I want to see my team win. All right, your phone call, 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hello, DJ. Good to hear you.
Rico.
It's been a long time, Father Grant.
Hey, Rico, how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
I like Conway, by the way, a lot.
I know you do. That's why I did that, because I remember you talking about it a couple weeks ago with Bill.
It's a hell of a callback. Nicely done. What's going on?
By the way, real quick, this is an auspicious anniversary. Unfortunate, sad 150 years for the 29. I have to call on Edmund Fitzgerald Day. I always have to.
And I appreciate that. Aren't you a former you were a sailor? Were you a Marine? That's the anniversary.
Navy.
That's the birthday.
Navy.
Okay, you were Navy. Never mind. Navy. My bad.
Yep. I was a squid, not a jarhead. Yes.
Apologies.
That's right. No. I wasn't a crane eater. That's okay.
I was going to say, that doesn't seem like something that you guys would take offense to. Not at all. That's not something you take personal. Whoops.
No. But anyhow, real quick. Are we gone?
You're right here. We're good.
Oh, we're still here?
Yeah. I haven't gone
okay. I thought I lost you. Like, all of a sudden you were gone.
No, you're all good.
Real quick. All right. Did about the Edmund Fitzgerald, tomorrow's Veterans Day. We do that too. But I have to tell you a quick story. I first of all, a statement and a story. Quick story, I promise.
Okay.
Statement is, I'm sorry I made fun of your funny Dan guy with a sort of pseudo country pop funk mix kind of guy from a couple weeks back. It looks like I hit a nerve with you.
Oh, that's fine. And it was a couple weeks ago.
No, it's not. Yeah. Well, anyhow, but the other thing is, all right, my grandparents went to Branson, Missouri. This is 25 years ago, at least, because they've both been long dead for long. They're probably closer to 30 years ago. So my grandparents were out to eat, and one of my grandmother's favorite restaurants to go to was a place called Po Folks.
Okay.
Not poor, Po. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not. It's kind of popular in the South, middle South of the United States.
Okay.
And she's sitting there, and this gentleman walks up to her and sits down. He goes, "Hello, ma'am. How are you today?" "Oh, I'm fine." She goes, I go, "Are you been waiting long?" She goes, "No, not too long. We like to come to Po Folks whenever we come along one because we live up in Wisconsin." She talked with this gentleman. He goes, "Well, you like the food?" He goes, "Yeah." And all this kind of stuff. Everything was wonderful. And these two little old ladies across from her are they're just like looking at her funny.
Mm-hmm.
And they got done talking, and the guy said, "Well, I hope you I really appreciate your patronage, and I hope you have a really great meal." And she goes, "Well, thank you so much. You're such a fine young man. Nice, fine young man." And he gets up, and he goes, "I'll talk to you later." And he walks away. This is Branson, Missouri. Okay. So all of a sudden, about a minute and a half after he kind of walks around the corner, the little old lady's like, "Do you know who you were just talking to?" She goes, "No," because my grandmother, she didn't know anything about pop culture in any way, shape, or form. She was a housewife who lived in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, took care of her family. And they go, "That was Conway Twitty."
It sounds very
Conway
unassuming.
Twitty, because Conway Twitty was one of the owners of Po Folks.
Isn't Po Folks a song? Isn't that an old country song? And I can't place it. Probably.
It might be, but it was also a restaurant. So he asked her how things were going, how she enjoyed her meals, and she thought, "Oh, just fine. I just thought he was the general manager."
Well, he probably acted like it, and I appreciate this wholesome story, Rico. As a lover of Conway Twitty, I think it's funny. How long ago did Bill and I talk about this? We were talking about Conway. What was this 3 weeks ago? I thought you were about to tell me that you met Gordon Lightfoot in Branson, Missouri, which seems like a place he would also be. He played. Was it Coyote Mike? I think it might have been Coyote Mike. Texted into Bill yesterday or the day before, and talked about how he saw Gordon Lightfoot in lacrosse. Although a bunch of people played in lacrosse. Hell, Elvis has got a statue here in Madison because he broke up a fight. Ebo taught me that lore like 2 years ago. I almost didn't believe it. So it's kind of cool. You don't get acts like that in small towns anymore. I don't know. I wish it was like that. I wish I could have seen Conway Twitty. Po Folks it's an old country song. I have to Google it as we continue to take more calls here. All right. Line number 2, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Conway Twitty. What a hairdo.
Wow. No kidding. What a man.
What a hairdo.
What a presence.
What a story there from Rico. Sounds like we got a whole division of Wisco Sports Zones. People driving up to Appleton or up to Green Bay.
Yeah, what's going on? Well, I suppose, it makes sense that Z was headed up there for the Packer game, I guess.
It sounds like a whole division's heading up there.
Well,
whole division.
I saw some tweets about how there's a lot of Eagles fans up there. So I tell you what, if the Packers lose tonight, this is going to be a miserable week on Sports Talk Radio. If the Packers lose tonight and there's a huge Eagle contingent, then we're going to have to also talk about the gold package because I think it's Milwaukee crowd tonight. Which
I don't think you got to worry about it, Grant. I'm standing outside my backyard right now. It's pretty cold.
Yeah,
I'm going to say that they should have Packers should have the vibes on their side on the day that Edmund Fitzgerald went down 50 years ago. I think that's enough to push him over the top.
There's got to be something involved there. Just a couple miles off the shores of Lake Michigan. I would think so. Well, I guess Green Bay, but you know what I mean. Should be. They should have a commemorative moment before the game.
I'm sure that ship has been to Green Bay, though.
Chances are.
You would think.
Yeah, you would think.
Chances are.
This is running for what? Almost
so I need those
20 years, 15, 20 years?
I need those boys who are going up to that game tonight to report back and see if Romeo Dobbs is playing middle linebacker on kick defense team. Just see if he is, report back, and then we'll know that they're listening to the show, Grant. We'll know they're listening to the show.
Well, this is what's so stupid, Eric. That's a good point. I appreciate the call because right now the Packers, they didn't elevate any practice squad receivers tonight. So it stands to reason that at least a couple of Savion Williams or Matthew Golden are going to be able to play because I feel like they probably would have elevated someone. Otherwise, they'd be like too short on bodies. It is not lost on me that Romeo Dobbs is basically their only fully 100% healthy wide receiver, and they have him returning punts because no one else can do it. By the way, I just need to scratch this itch and close this mental loop. Po Folks is by Bill Anderson. That was my guess, but I forgot to look it up because I was so enthralled with what Eric was saying. Early 60s, correct. Good song. Bigger fan of 99 Years and other Bill Anderson songs, but that one's good too. Wisco Sports Show, who's this?
Yeah, hello, Grant.
Howdy.
How's it going, man?
Excellent. How about you?
Doing good. It's Tim over in Eau Claire.
Awesome, Jim.
Scrutiny. That was the word you were looking for.
Yeah, what was I saying?
I don't even know. We were getting there, but we're
running out of time.
That, Grant.
I had to get to Zach's update. We didn't have all night, but yes, that would be the word.
Yeah. Real quick. I feel like Green Bay being a mediocre football team is going to be good for them. They came out of the gate. They thought they were the best team in the NFL, and they're not playing like it. I feel like if they accept who they are, a mediocre team, maybe they'll be a little sharper moving forward.
Well, I mean, do you think they're a mediocre team?
I mean, obviously it depends on if they're playing the Browns or if they're, who they're playing. But
so do you think they're mediocre or do you think they play down to their competition? Because those are two different things.
I think honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I think they're mediocre.
Okay. Well,
and you know what? That's not a bad thing. I think they should lean into that a little bit more. Stop thinking that they're the best team, and I think that'll play out. They'll be a tougher team at the end of the season if they accept who they are.
Okay. So that's an interesting the idea that they need to be humbled a little bit. Jim, that's a good call. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening, Eau Claire. The idea that they need to be humbled a little bit is a fine one. I think they were probably feeling themselves a little bit after weeks 1 and 2. Why wouldn't they be? That's natural. I think there are parts of this team that are maybe a little bit overrated by the fans, by Packers fans. I think we look at this wide receiver group and probably overinflate how good it is now, especially without Tucker Kraft. I think it's a fine group. The way that Packers fans talk about it, it's like, well, why aren't the Packers scoring 40 every game? Well, I don't know that we should be expecting that because the O-line isn't very good. They can't run the ball. They just lost their best pass catcher. And their wide receivers are Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Matthew Golden, who I like. That's a good group. You can win playoff games with that group if they play well and execute and if other, parts of the team are firing. But that's not a Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, or Justin Jefferson, or Jordan Addison. Although, are Vikings fans getting pissy with Justin Jefferson right now? I saw some tweets today. Now, there's a chance that I just saw a very vocal minority of fans. That's not how the internet works. I don't know. I think the Packers have plenty of elite talent to compete and possibly win the division. I don't know if they're as talented as the Rams or the Eagles. Tonight will be a great measuring stick. And in fact, I believe it was Bill Huber asked Matt LaFleur over the weekend in one of the pressers, do you consider this as a measuring stick game? Do you buy into that idea? And Matt LaFleur said, no, that's more for you guys. Classic coach answer. But then he basically said, but I'd be lying if I said, guys, don't think about it. So he basically said, yeah, of course. Anytime you play an elite team, that's going to be on guys' minds. They're going to be considering, all right, we're going up against an elite team. Let's see how we stack up. Now, the Packers needing to be humbled and, needing to be scrappier and more locked in and dialed in. Yeah, I don't think that's a product of them being mediocre. If they're mediocre, then what are we talking about? You know what I mean? Then there's just a hard cap on this team. And whether they execute or not, they're just not going to be able to beat the elite teams because they're mediocre. I don't believe that to be true. I think they're undisciplined. Is that a reflection of the head coach? I don't know. But everyone loves Kevin O'Connell. His team had 8 false start penalties yesterday. So again, when we get in our own heads complaining or criticizing our own team, we should do that. That's fair. That's what we do. Then watch a couple of other teams, see what's going on with them. It's like, oh, most teams are battling these issues on a week in, week out basis, which is why the loss to the Panthers, the loss to the Browns hurts so much. Even if you don't win in a sexy fashion, just collecting wins when you have opportunities is so important. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Louie in Eau Claire.
Hey, what's going on, Louie?
Hey, Grant. Happy Monday. Thanks for taking my
Monday.
call.
Of course.
I think, generally speaking, whatever angst there is around the Packers kind of revolves around the offense, offensive line, Jordan Love, play calling, injuries, that sort of thing. I think it's being lost a little bit in the shuffle. The defense is kind of becoming a one-trick pony in terms of we can get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
But to get to the quarterback, it's got to be a passing down, and it's got to be an advantageous score. I'd really like to see the Packers kind of come out and kind of bring some mass to you tonight and shut down at least slow down the Eagles' running game. But I'm not really confident that's going to happen. I guess one thing I wanted to bring up, so last year when Robert Saleh was in the building, they swore up and down, the Packers did, that he was only helping out on offense. He wasn't doing much on defense. In hindsight, I still like Jeff Hafley. I'm not out on him. I'm not saying he doesn't know what he's doing. But they seem to be a little sharper last year. Maybe that was partly due to the competition. Do you think he was more involved potentially than maybe they let on a season ago?
Ask that one more time.
Do you think he was more involved a season ago than the Packers let on?
I would be surprised. That's an interesting question, Louis. I love your first point. I don't think this defense is a one-trick pony. I wish they were a little bit more, I don't know, fluid or versatile week by week. I don't like it that it's so clear what they want to do. They're just going to give you underneath completions, and then they're just going to rush the passer to get off the field. And as a big picture concept, I'm fine with that. Just because you have Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary doesn't mean that needs to be your only and whole thing. Move Xavier McKinney around a little bit, which they did last week, or move Edgerrin Cooper around. Just be willing to try different things and throw different things at the wall. And this is why defense is so great. Scheming defense or playing defense is you're going to be wrong most of the time anyway. You're never really going to be able to play a perfect game because the nature of defense is you're trying to guess what they're doing. Defense is always going to be wrong. So if you just assume we're going to be wrong most of the time anyway, why not try stuff? Why not move guys around? Why not? I don't know. It just seems like the last couple of weeks, opponents have very clearly and obviously understood what they need to do against both sides of the ball. We need to run the ball, take easy completions against the Packers defense. We need to force, underneath completions from the Packers offense. They'll get impatient, do dumb stuff. I mean, it's just so clear. And I don't like that opposing offensive and defensive play callers have such an easy read on what they can and what they should do against the Packers. I don't like that. So if that makes them a one-trick pony, I guess we're arguing semantics. I wish they were a little bit more, this is a big time NBA word, malleable. It's the teams that are most malleable. That word only gets used in March for playoff previews for NBA podcasts. One more call here, and then we'll get to Mike Clemens. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Clement Mike.
Hey, Clement. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm excellent. A little under the weather, but that's fine.
I know. Don't overdo the NyQuil. I overdosed on NyQuil a few years ago. I was chugging it for days because I had a horrible cold, and I woke up 4 days later, Motel 6 in Silver Springs, Maryland, married to a girl named Trixie, but by God, I could breathe.
You could breathe and you can sleep clearly, yeah.
No, as a certified shipwreck survivor, I just appreciate your yearly show. Anybody who hasn't heard the story, I told you before how our ship hit a gigantic rock, concrete reinforced rock formation in the middle of Tokyo Bay. They'd used it in World War II for a gun emplacement, and our ship hit it doing 20 knots. We ripped the front third of the ship off below the waterline, nearly capsized. We went over the rock formation, destroyed the sides of the ship and the screws, and they said we were one hatch away from sinking. It was quite. I'm a big hi-fi nut. I never heard a bass note that low in my life, so it was quite the experience. And the guys the next day, the scuba divers were servicing up in the space right below the berthing compartment where I lived, and yeah, it was quite the trip. But shipwrecks are no fun. But I know you looked it up last year. I remember you were looking it up on the USS Leahy website, and
yeah,
pretty
did you
exciting.
lifeboat
But,
off of it, or what did you do?
No, we didn't sink. We were listing badly to one side, and actually one of our screws was able to rotate, so we were able to move a little. Then the tugs came and pulled us into port. We spent 3 months in Japan in dry dock, which was isn't where we wanted to be.
No.
We were supposed to go to Hong Kong. We were supposed to go to Australia. We got screwed. We didn't go to any of those places. So we got stuck in Japan for 3 months, and it's in a city that didn't like American sailors. So yeah, it sucks.
Eat some sushi.
Anyway, yeah, well, there's a lot of places in town they didn't allow. They had big signs that no American sailors allowed, so we didn't really go downtown a lot. We did some shopping there. All the places that sold things were more than happy to take your money. But
there you go.
Yeah, but so anyway, that's my quick story about surviving a shipwreck. But
about
if anybody ever wants to look it up, look up USS Leahy, Leahy, and there's pictures of the shrapnel and all that stuff, and
pretty gnarly. I'm looking at
yeah,
pictures.
It was a trip. It was yeah. The worst part was almost tipping over, capsizing. We were very close to tipping. So we were 5,800 tons of ship. So
yeah, that's a pretty beefy one. Maybe not filled with iron ore pellets. I appreciate the call, Clem Head Mike, but still, I don't want to be listing at however many degrees I'm looking at. Leahy helped direct the United States relief flights into Mogadishu. Man, you guys were just seeing the world. No-fly zone, enforcing a no-fly zone in southern Iraq. You guys were just seeing all of the destinations around the globe. We're going to get to Mike Clemens. Coming up next, we'll preview Packers-Eagles with Mike.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
You remember that a couple years ago? Jordan Love comes in relief for Aaron Rodgers and all of a sudden throws a couple touchdowns to Christian Watson. A little bit of a coming out party for them both. Welcome back. It's the Bill Michaels Show. Mike Clemens is here joining us. Thanks to the Bay Motel up in Green Bay. Quiet, cozy, comfortable, and less than a mile from Lambeau Field. So you can make your reservations. BayMotelGreenBay.com, or give them a call and don't forget that the Bay Family Restaurant is there too with home-style cooking 7 days a week. So don't forget. You won't be able to forget once you have it. So, Mike, we're preparing for Monday Night Football, and Christian Watson, one of the few healthy Packers wide receivers. So that's where we'll start. He's going to play a big role tonight, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that was kind of a moment right there. That's the first time Christian Watson caught a touchdown pass from Jordan Love from number 10. That was his rookie year. He'd already caught a couple from Aaron Rodgers. You know, this kid was a second-round pick out of South Dakota, playing for the Bison. But
NDSU, North Dakota State.
Yeah, North Dakota State. And what I thought was interesting was Aaron Rodgers, when we were on the Zoom with him going into the Pittsburgh game, he brought that up again. Like this is just part of his personal history. Like, Brett got that elbow jammed in a game we were playing the Cowboys down in Dallas. I took over in like a third quarter, moved the ball. We ended up losing the Cowboys, but that's what people said, whoa. And Jordan Love did the same thing. Remember, he scored like 10 points with 10 plays.
Yeah.
He hits Christian Watson that 63-yarder. He was quick. It was motion. And it was almost like you went from kind of the offense looking stale under Rodgers to that. And even Rodgers said himself, like, that's when it's like, oh, boy, looks like the kid's ready, right?
Yeah.
So and that ended up being his last year. He went through his darkness retreat and ended up saying, you know what, trade me to the Jets. So at wide receiver tonight, by the way, I'm at practice Saturday, the last one they let us into, and there's Matthew Golden, and he's been dealing with this shoulder injury. He was there warming up with the guys, but then when it got time to go out onto the Nitschke field to practice, he stayed inside. So he's still listed as questionable with his shoulder that's been bothering him. He missed one practice, so it's day-to-day, according to Matt LaFleur. And then you got Dontavian Wicks. He's been out the last couple of weeks with a calf. I believe he's still listed as questionable for tonight. So that means it's going to be, Romeo Doubs on one side. You got the three new, if you will, tight ends, started by Luke Musgrave, Josh Wiley, the kid that they brought up from the practice squad, good player out of Tennessee, John Fitzpatrick, who's been playing now for about a year and beat out Ben Sims. But those are going to be Jordan Love's targets, and so I had a chance to talk to Christian.
And here is Mike with Christian Watson for a couple minutes. Enjoy.
I remember a game, I think it was your rookie year, where you came across the middle. Jordan Love was in for Aaron Rodgers, who had a rib injury that night. You catch this ball over the middle, take it 63 yards, and I'm like, oh my God. Do you remember that play? I mean, to me, that was like a signature play for you.
I definitely remember it. It was obviously a big-time play. It was definitely kind of the start to us getting back into that game a little bit. I definitely remember that play for sure.
When we were on a Zoom call with Aaron a couple weeks ago, leading up to the Steelers game, he said, I got in for Brett down in Dallas. Jordan got in for me that game, and it might have been one of those moments where the franchise said, "Ooh, this kid might be ready." Do you look back on that now and say that could have been the turning point?
For 10, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely think that he showed, what he had and what he was able to do with it, his confidence and, his poise coming into the game at that point, even though he hadn't, played very much, up until that point. I think it was definitely a show the world kind of game for him for sure.
And you had a couple of those kinds of balls a couple of weeks later in Chicago against the Bears. We think of you as the go route guy, but if, that's just get the ball in the man's hand.
That's definitely my mentality. Anyone can label me, however they want to. I know my strengths and weaknesses for sure, but at the end of the day, I know what I can do with the ball in my hands for sure. So, whether that's 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage or 50 yards, downfield, I know what I can do with it.
With Packers wide receiver Christian Watson, you're born in Phoenix and then you go to Tampa. So how old were you when you guys moved to Tampa?
4 years old.
Just 4 years old. You have this growth spurt in high school. How tall are you now? 6'2"?
No, like 6'4" and a quarter. Yeah.
When did you know that you had this unique gift in terms of speed?
Since the day that I started walking. I mean, I've always been, a fast guy. I ran competitive track since I was 7 years old. So, I mean, it was always something that I knew. I feel like it just got, even, more so. Didn't lose anything. Just gained, longer strides and everything as I got taller. So, I mean, it was definitely something I always had.
I mean, I remember my high school days, and a couple of guys I was with that could set state records, like in the 220 and whatnot. To me, there's something that you guys with speed, maybe it's just like the way you're wired, like the brain sends the messages faster. I mean, is there?
No doubt. I mean, I definitely think that, God willing, people are definitely, built a little different. I mean, you can have two guys that are built the exact same way. One can be a 4.2 guy and the other could be a 4.6 guy, 40. So, I mean, there's definitely some God-given, talents and traits that help us out there.
When McCurl Hardman was here, they were sending him out on some go routes. He had some speed. And I said, whoa, who's faster, you or Matthew Golden? He says, I think Christian. You during your rehab warming up on the sidelines. Do they ever make you guys race?
Nah, I don't know if that would be the smartest thing to do, and just in terms of making sure we're doing the right things. But I mean, we'll probably get our own race in one of these days just to prove the point. But I mean, I'll take me over anybody.
Your days in Fargo playing for the Bison, which is a program that's had a lot of national championships. I think about a kid going from Tampa to Fargo, but now Green Bay is it's almost kind of the same thing. Smaller town where football's the whole thing.
For sure. I mean, I think it was a really good situation for me. I mean, it felt like how I was feeling, my 5 years in college. So, it felt familiar to me. And then obviously, I like the idea of the focus just being football, not a lot of distractions and everything, just football work.
Packers wide receiver Christian Watson, you've been a spokesperson for the team for cancer research, and you've got sort of a personal connection to that story, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely had, quite a few personal connections to it. So it just hits a little bit more home for me. So I like to, spread awareness.
Was it your mom or?
Yeah. I mean, quite a few family members, but, just my mom and mother-in-law.
Well, I think it's great that you're participating in that. Will there be more events coming up later this month that you'll be at?
Definitely, if anything pops up, I always consider, showing face just to, continue to do things like that.
So because family members, all that just much makes you appreciate when you, as a Packer, get to meet maybe some of these patients or to advocate for those programs, how important it is, right?
100%. I mean, it's definitely just important to me. I mean, anytime I can help anybody out or, just bring a smile to their face or anything, somebody who's going through that. I mean, I know how much it, impacted me when I was going through. I know how much it impacted, my family and everything. So, I mean, I definitely know, it impacts them, positively in some way. So I like to do things like that for sure.
Packers wide receiver Christian Watson. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Thank you.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
What's your thoughts on Jordan Love?
A lot of respect for Love. I think he's a really good quarterback who's made a lot of plays, won a lot of games. Coach Flores won a ton of games. Yeah, a lot of respect for how he runs the offense and how he can read through things, accurate as a passer, able to make plays with his feet. Tough. And I continue to see him get better as we continue to play them.
Nick Sirianni. It's funny, we've been listening to comments from players on both sides, coaches on both sides. The tush-push thing is a real thing, and the Packers are going to have to wear that. I think everybody knows that the league was pulling some of those levers. But still, the Packers are the team that's going to have to wear that. These teams are obviously rivals. They've played quite a few times the last couple of years. But there also seems to be a lot of respect, at least publicly, maybe behind closed doors. They hate each other and they don't respect each other at all. But Mike Clemens is back joining us for another segment now, thanks to Bay Motel in Green Bay. Mike, it does seem like there's a lot of respect. You hear Micah Parsons talk about, Lane Johnson or Sirianni and LaFleur. It seems like these teams have a lot of respect for each other.
That's an excellent point. I mean, the Eagles are aware that really wasn't the Packers' idea. That's coming from the league, okay? That's coming from the lawyers or the owners or something like that. And the Packers have played these guys tough. Now, it's been 5 years since the Packers beat the Eagles. You realize that? Like in the course of 4 meetings or so, 4 games. But, the Packers played them pretty tough. They held them, was it 22 points, 22-10? They made it a game. And then, they went and throttled the dynasty team, the Chiefs, 34-0 in the Super Bowl. The Eagles did. Eagles are in really good shape, man. I mean, something? They just had their bye week now, midway through the season. And Saquon Barkley, who went into it, left in the third quarter in the last game with a groin injury, he was full participation the other day. So Saquon's back. A.J. Brown has been dealing with a hamstring. After that bye week, full participation. So they're going to be okay. Cam Jurgens is their center. He's probably out tonight because he did not actually, yeah, he's now listed as out from the Eagles. So they're going to be moving around guys on the offensive line. But Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, there's a bunch of crazies on that Eagles team. And they've added, a bunch of crazies too, like Jair Alexander. Just before the trade deadline, Howie Roseman on the phone, he picks up Jair Alexander from the Ravens. He gets another corner to get some more depth for the injuries they've had in the secondary. Michael Carter comes from the Jets. And they get Jalen Phillips out of the Dolphins, who said when he got into the locker room, the Eagles, he was so relieved. He was so excited to be with this team. He was asked, how did you find out about it? He says, I found out in the media I'd been traded. He said, our interim GM from the Dolphins called me later. He's so excited to be there tonight and playing tonight on Monday Night Football. And Jalen Hurts was asked about that in Philly.
Everybody who's come in, Jair and Mike and Jalen, they're all great people, and they're eager. They're excited to be a part of what we're doing. And so we just, we're all in it together now. And I think that's the unique thing about having this bye week in the middle of the year. I mean, it's kind of it's just right in the middle. It's right at the midpoint of what we're doing. So it's an opportunity to reset and learn from the things that we've done. And then as we've added new pieces and kind of continue to grow in a particular direction, we can grow and see where it takes us.
Even in the half that you guys play the Packers, obviously they got Micah on the defensive end this time. Just what have you seen from that defense on tape, and what kind of challenges do they pose?
Well, that was a really good defense last year already. So adding Micah to the mix makes them that much more of a problem. Great players up front, very disruptive up front, and then in the back end, they are very sticky in coverage. The linebackers fly around from sideline to sideline. We got to come in ready to play.
So again, a lot of respect. Jalen Hurts, even talking about last year's defense. And also, I'm just struck at Howie Roseman and the way he operates, Mike. Like, this is a great team. All right, middle of the year, what do we need? Almost like a baseball general manager. We need to go add a corner here. We need to go add a piece. Probably he operates that way more so than any other general manager in football.
Yeah, I mean, and he gets football players, whether they've had off the field issues or not.
Yeah.
Exhibit A would be Jalen Carter out of Georgia, and the fatal accident he kind of walked away from Georgia. For your Packers defense tonight, Lucas Van Ness is going to be out for a while. I think he's having maybe out of the facility procedures done. I saw him walking around on that right foot injury, but he's out for a while. Nate Hobbs not playing tonight. He's been dealing with that other knee injury. For the most part, I think the defense is going to be okay. It'll be Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine on the corners. Bullard should be okay. And then Micah Parsons, he came out of the Panthers game last week with a pectoral injury that he was limited in practice and then an illness over the weekend. But Micah, who comes from the Cowboys and was facing the Eagles twice a year in the NFC East, now faces them tonight and talked about what's it going to be like now. Because this Packers team was one step away, right, from going to the next step in the playoffs, and you have to get past the Eagles now at Lambeau on Monday Night Football.
It's like a respect thing. You kind of know, like, you should be taking us serious. Like, we're earning this on the field, and we don't care who you are, what you've done. We're trying to earn them stripes. We're trying to take them stripes. We're trying to get to where you're going, and that's, like, what makes this league so competitive. There's teams that go to the NFC Championship, Super Bowl. We all got them dreams and aspirations to do that. When you come that next year and you're on the top of the mountain, it's like, how do you stay there? Because everyone's coming for it. And we're coming for the top of the mountain. They're coming to Lambeau to show them why they're on top of the mountain, and we're showing them why we're climbing the mountain. So it's going to be a respectful game. It's going to be a very respectful and disrespectful game. It's going to be a dogfight.
Respectful and disrespectful at the same time. Mike Clemens is here thanks to the Bay Motel in Green Bay. He's played against Lane Johnson forever, and he even told Penei Sewell with the Lions, like, you're my new division rival. You're my new Lane Johnson, right? Because these two have been going at it, twice a year now for a couple of years, really since Mike has ever been in the NFL.
Yeah, good recall. Good recall.
Thank you.
And then the other thing I couldn't help but think is, what's going to be on Micah Parsons' mind tonight when they have that moment of silence for number 94, the defensive end Marshawn Nealon, who took his life last week, late Wednesday night, Thursday morning, just about a mile from the Cowboys facility. Here's this kid that grew up in Grand Rapids, Western Michigan, is a second-round pick, a defensive end, behind Micah. That was he called him his little brother, and attributed it on social media. And so I said to Micah Parsons, how are you going to approach this game tonight with, Marshawn Nealon on your mind?
If I know 9-4, you're going to want me to kill him. He's going to want me to kill him because that's how he played. He always played with the intent and passion and played the right way. And every time I seen him step on the field, he gave it his all. Even when he was hurt, even when he was dealing with things off the field, he never let it show on the field. So I have to do the same thing.
Not that there's ever a way, and I think Jason Wilde said this in your guys' avail with Micah, not that there's ever an easy way to just go right back into football after, talking about what happened with Nealon, who was Parsons' former teammate. But I think it's been the offense, Mike, that's probably struggled more than the defense in recent weeks, especially against Carolina, and the O-line's been a big part of that.
Yeah, and in that playoff game in Philly, things went down the drain when, you had that starting five offensive line that had done pretty well last year, blocking for Josh Jacobs. His numbers are down this year. You made the change. You decided to let Josh Myers move on and move Elton Jenkins to center. Is that really working? And then Elton Jenkins gets hurt in that game when Nolan Smith gives him a late shot with his helmet, with the play was way beyond. It's got a cheap shot, if you will. Football. It drove his helmet and took Elton Jenkins out of the game with a severe stinger. So we're talking to Elton the other day. He's kind of iffy about his role at center. We talked about facing this Eagles D-line tonight and the impact of them bringing back to their defensive edge veteran, Brandon Graham, at the age of 37, bringing him back to the Philly defense.
He brings a lot. He a veteran presence, able to help the young guys in situations and things like that. So I feel like he brings a lot. Last year they beat us twice, one in Brazil, then in the playoffs. So yeah, a rematch for sure is going to help us out.
And a smart veteran who can kind of come in maybe with some younger, I think of Jalen Carter, right? Can you come in and stabilize the situation a little bit? Probably just as a leader and as a coach and an effective player who, in a big moment in a big game, I bet can absolutely still do it, Mike.
Yeah, now, on terms of the offensive line and the injury report that they put out over the weekend, let's see, Aaron Banks got a neck, the stinger from the Panthers game. He was full participation, though, by Saturday. But Zach Tom, your right tackle, is listed as questionable for tonight's game, limited participation. He's been dealing with a back injury. So in the meantime, one of the biggest questions I get from your listeners, from Packer fans, is why do they keep rotating the guards?
Yep.
Remember they started the year before last where it was like they had the veteran John Runyon in there, but they started rotating in the younger Sean Ryan. And then they let Runyon go on in free agency. And now they got Sean Ryan, who you thought was going to be your starter at right guard. They're rotating him with Jordan Morgan. And so I asked LaFleur about, do you tell me if this is silly or not? But I asked LaFleur about this topic.
An offensive line, if you're healthy, why do you rotate guards? I can think of 2 or 3 different reasons why, and how common is that?
Why are they?
How about player development or competition or keeping guys like defensive line, keeping guys fresh?
Yeah.
What's the main reason you do that?
All 3 of those. I mean, you knew the answer. You answered your own question.
Well, I watched the game.
Do you want to come
Sure.
work with us?
Sure.
All right. I like where your head's at, Mike.
But it's not common, right?
No, it's not. It's something that I do recall doing back when I first got in the league in Houston. We had a situation like that where we'd rotate guards. And I do think, you mentioned it, the D-line is a position typically where there is more rotation and, you're always getting a fresh body thrown at you. So when you feel good about multiple people, of course, you want to keep them playing, keep them engaged, keep them a part of everything and keep developing them. So I think that's kind of where we're at.
So somebody's on Houston.
It is.
So, Mike, I understand that you're a busy man. I'm sure you'd be capable of helping out, but I hear stuff like this.
I like where your head's at, Mike.
I just want to make sure that you're going to be able to file your reports on top of doing some consulting work in the locker room, it sounds like.
Yeah, me holding up pads next to Luke Butkus trying to hold off 320-pound offensive line.
I like where your head's at, Mike.
Get on the sled. Get on the sled, Mike. Come on.
Right. Yeah, sure. Right. No, so, and Matt was an offensive assistant. Robert Salah got him in that job with the Texans. Gary Kubiak, former Denver Broncos quarterback and offensive coordinator and long-time successful head coach who eventually took the Broncos to win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, right? So that's Kubiak, and he had some problems at offensive line. He started coming up with this rotating offensive line thing back in 08 or 09. A young Matt LaFleur sees that, and I'm not so sure that Steno or the rest of those guys are on. I know the players aren't on board with it. They'd like to just, can I just play all 65 snaps? Remember, wasn't it Sean Ryan? Rob Domonsky had a story that said Sean Ryan came short by 2 snaps of the season and lost $1 million escalator on his contract because of that. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So one quick other moment is this. I want to share this with Packer fans because as it was happening, I stopped because I'm thinking of our fans, of our listeners. I'm like, oh my God, can you imagine if listeners had a chance to do what I'm doing right now? When I got done talking to Christian Watson, I come back over and there's a crowd of media people because in this new locker room the Packers got, they've got these giant screens. And up there was the Indiana number 2 football team against Penn State, at Penn State. And this game is close. It's getting on like last 2 minutes, and Penn State is up. They're leading this thing. Indiana takes the ball and drives down the field, goes up. Penn State tries to score, and come back, and Indiana ends up winning in a close one. I start to look around and lying on the floor with them. It was like being in someone's living room with the furniture they got. There's Evan Williams, the safety. There's Rasheed Walker, the left tackle, and Micah Parsons from Penn State. And we're watching that game.
Free play. Send it. Oh, we can get a play. Where's the?
I'm not gonna lie, that kid is an idiot.
I did that for you. Yeah.
Mike, it's pretty cool. I've done this at spring training too, and the World Baseball Classic is on and there's games being played. It's kind of fun to watch the sport with the guys who play the sport because it's clear how much they love it and just want to watch it. How much
they love ball. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
How much they love ball. I mean, these guys could have cleared out 20 minutes before. And actually, it was nice enough for the Packers, PR folks to realize, hey, we're all having a moment here. Can we watch the end of this game before you kick us out? And then, Penn State threw that incompletion, game over. Indiana wins on the road, and that's the way this ended.
Yeah, that's it, everybody. Thank you.
Drive home safe. We got to clean the joint out. Well, Mike, we'll look forward to your breakdown later in the week of a huge game tonight. I got to run, but some big time narratives are going to be decided by tonight's result, one way or another.
Yeah, I'll be back with a recap 1:25 tomorrow.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you, Grant.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
A freighter carrying a crew of 29 disappeared on Lake Superior during a severe storm last night, and so far, no survivors have been found. The freighter, the Edmund Fitzgerald, was transporting iron ore when it ran into high winds and 25-foot waves.
All right, last couple minutes, wrap up the show. Packers Eagles tonight. I want Packers to win. I'm a Packers fan and owner. I want them to win every game. I would really prefer they win tonight, because if they don't, it's going to be a long week. It's going to be a lot of complaints about Matt LaFleur. I mean, I would like to point out before this game even starts, I'm concerned Matthew Golden isn't active tonight. I'm concerned with their horsepower at wide receiver now without Kraft, without Golden. I don't trust this O-line. And I don't think Matt LaFleur trusts him either based on how he's calling plays and how he's operating. So I guess I would just like to point out that if the Packers lose tonight, and I don't really have a good feel one way or another, we'll see, and then we'll react tomorrow. But if the Packers lose tonight, I don't necessarily think it's going to be because Matt LaFleur did something stupid or Matt LaFleur's an idiot or Matt LaFleur's a beta. Like, I think we might need to grapple with the reality that, yeah, especially now with Kraft injured, I don't know if they have the horses. I know Philly has the horses. Philly's got a lot of horses. So we'll see. I don't know. I am not excited for the content the remainder of the week if the Packers lose, and especially if they look really bad tonight. I don't like thinking about that. So I'm just not gonna. I'm gonna go home, enjoy the game. You do the same. Appreciate Ric Mixter for his time, Mike Clemens for his. Appreciate you listening. Be back tomorrow at 4. Enjoy the game tonight. Talk to you then.